The team at the Grout Guy are leading experts in regrouting, waterproofing, and tiling services nationwide. Property managers find comfort in their 10-year waterproof warranty on all full shower regrouts. Visit thegroutguy.com.au to rejuvenate your property's tiles and grout now. All right, welcome to today's group podcast. It's the second one that we have done on our weekly podcast show. And I like doing the group podcast because it's really good just to get a few different opinions from people, specifically with topics like this one, which is zero rent arrears. And the reason what prompted me to actually reach out to find people that had done a zero rent arrears was because I've never been able to achieve it. And I am very curious if there is any secrets and tips and tricks that the people that have achieved it before can share with us. And we were just sort of talking offline a little bit about it. About the fact that it's not possible to maybe do it 24/7, and it also depends on the numbers of your portfolio. So just sort of disclaiming that there are a couple of factors, but still a really cool personal or business KPI to achieve. So today, our guests, we have got the lovely Giselle from M Motion over in Queensland. We have got Sam from Rent Choice in WA, and we've got Skye from Tailored Property Management in Adelaide. So welcome, guys.
Hello.
All right. Hello. Now, you guys have all had the zero rent arrears. Extremely jealous. I'm going to have I've got a few questions. So I'll ask the question and then we'll sort of go around the table. So my first question is, and this is a very selfish question because I am here to learn myself, is do you believe that it comes from educating tenants at the very start, or does it come from educating tenants during their tenancy? So I'll start with Skye on this one. What's your thoughts on that question?
Both. So I definitely am very clear in the beginning at the handover of the keys that it's about encouraging communication. We all know life happens. And not to be afraid to tell me if life's happening so I can pre-warn the landlord. And then during the tenancy, it's about not letting it go on for too long, I believe. Like as soon as it's there, I'm onto it and I don't let go of it until we get it resolved or I get a response or I find out what's happening. Capturing it in those early days of arrears, I think sets a really clear expectation around what we will tolerate.
And I think, Giselle, you would be a little bit like that as well, a bit of a dog at a bone with arrears. What's your thoughts on the arrears process? Are we really strict at the start, or is it something that we sort of educate as we go along?
It's a combination of both for me as well. At the start, I'm very, very, very clear. I always say to my tenants, I can be your best friend or your worst enemy. It depends what you want to pick. But I try to explain one thing that many tenants, I realize they don't understand the results and the effect of being late on their own ledger. And I explained that I sent arrears on day one for the simple reason that I want their ledger to be perfect. I want them to be able to have the best opportunity if they have to change property, if they have to reapply, if the owners sell, whatever that might be. I said, I want you to present the best possible ledger to the next, because that's what property manager look. I don't want to have a tenant that is applying that has got trouble, that has been always in arrear. And some tenant, they told me, nobody has ever told me that. I get a warning only on day 7. They get warning from me on day 1 and constantly. And I always tell them, because on PropertyMe, it goes from their account to the trust, from the trust to PropertyMe. I said, I want your payment to leave your bank 2 days before, always. If you want 1 week, that's your prerogative, doesn't matter, but not later than 2 days. And I teach them to read the attachment that is a physical receipt with a pay to date, because many don't open it. And I explain very clearly, says that's a very, very important document to you, because that will show you when is your due date. You don't have any excuses. So is it, if you end up being late, I said, you're going to pay a price that could be way worse than what you think if you are in a position that the landlord decide to sell and you have to apply for anything else, especially in this market.
Yeah, love that. Sam, I'm going to ask you a different question, because I know that your office works on a lot of automation and, you guys are really highly skilled in that. I think sometimes, and maybe what I could be failing at, is potentially relying on the automation too much at the start with, just those automatic SMSs that are triggered and emails and things like that. What's your thoughts around automation and potentially using that for rent arrears to our detriment?
I think, especially here, I feel that automation has massively helped, and I think it's really important to do, because you're always out and about doing things, and it's not always possible to pick up on the arrears. So I think the automation helps, and I don't think I'd be able to do my job properly if I didn't have the automation. I do rely on that a lot. I think the content of the automation is very important, so it's making sure that tenants are aware, and again, it's educating them in those automated emails that what the potential consequences are of them, being late with their rent. It's just making sure that they're aware, like going back to what Skye and Giselle have said in regards to just educating them. I do the same in the automated systems, but I must admit the automated systems here do help massively, but I don't rely on them 100%. I still do pick up the phone. As soon as I get a notice from our accounts that someone's late, I will pick up the phone, or I'll send an email to that tenant to let them know that we're aware of it, and this is what you need to do, kind of thing. So I think automation is 100% needed in those circumstances.
Yeah, perfect. Now, I am going to, Sam, stay with you for a minute. I would love to just actually hear each person's process, like what days the automation happens, what day do you actually breach. Now, just again, a bit of a disclaimer, every state's different, every agency is different. This is more just to share what you guys do and what works for you, and I'll also share mine. We'll see whether it's as tight as what you guys are, but it's purely not how do I disclaim this? Not suggesting that anyone has to follow these, but just sharing our experience of how we do it in our office and how it works well for us. And obviously always follow your legislation, your insurance, your business's processes as well. But yeah, Sam, if you can give us some insight with what the automation looks like, what day you sort of tend to breach, obviously majority, because it's not maybe consistent for everyone, and what that looks like.
Okay, to start with, I guess, I don't know, I'm assuming that everybody is the same, but I shouldn't assume. But we always make sure all of our tenants are on direct debit. So that's the first thing that we do. Like, I don't bend on that, even if tenants are requesting to pay manually. I just say, no, it's direct debit. That's how it says it in your lease agreement. And I try and stick to that unless there's a really good reason why they can't pay by direct debit. But I would say probably 98% of my tenants are all on direct debit, which makes it a lot easier. So it kind of starts there. If a tenant does, we get an email from our accounts if they dishonor, which is normally 2 days later from when they try to pull it. So if we get that dishonored notification from accounts, we then send the tenants an email just basically saying, hey, your direct debit's dishonored. We're going to try and pull it the next business day. Please ensure that there's enough money in your account. And I also send them a separate email saying, look, this is the process for direct debits. I do give them one pass. So if they dishonor once, I do give them a pass, because sometimes they've put a digit wrong in their direct debit or something like that. So I do give them one pass. But then I do state in the email that I send separately, if it does happen again, unfortunately, you'll be breached, without notice. And I do go into a bit of detail about what the breach means, because a lot of tenants don't really know what a breach is. But I basically go into a bit of detail about what a breach is and how it can impact your chances of renting in the future. And then if it dishonors again, obviously, then I'll breach. And then I follow the process for the breach notice from there. And we obviously log all our breaches and everything from there. So, yeah.
And then just a mixture of phone calls. And then just a mixture of phone calls and SMSs in between.
Yeah, the automation still happens. Some tenants that are regular dishonored, I'll always pick up the phone to them and have a conversation. But normally on the second pull, it always normally goes through, to be honest. It's very rare that it happens again after that. So, yeah.
So what direct debit system do you use?
What do you mean?
Like, does that work from your trust software?
Yeah, so they just we just get them to sign a direct debit form. We input them into PropertyTree, their direct debit, and it just automatically pulls every fortnight.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, because I would have thought that, like, I guess the declines, I feel like that would annoy me, and I would be worried that there'd be too much work with direct debits for the declines.
I do get, well, I've got 600, just under 600 properties, and I probably on a regular basis get no more than 5 dishonor daily. But then we just, which obviously is going to happen. You're never going to get, sometimes I get none, but like I say, normally it's under 5, and then I just chase them up from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Not too bad. Thank you for sharing. Skye, over to you. What does your process for rent arrears look like?
Sure. I would love to have tenants on direct debit, but in SA, we can't enforce a particular way of paying. But for me, it's the automations in the emails, the templates are set up in PropertyMe, and there is a range of different emails that I will send out based on whether I've been able to get the tenant on the phone or not. So day 2, it's a whoops, did you forget to pay your rent type of email? And usually it's resolved at that point because they have just forgotten. Then the next day I'm picking up the phone. So I think certainly in the experience I've had working with other agencies and managing other property managers, there's always a bit of a reluctance to pick up the phone and have that conversation because no one wants to talk about money. But if I'm a tenant and I'm potentially having some money juggling situations, it's really easy to ignore an email and a text. Phone calls are a little bit harder to ignore. So they generally do find, I think, work well quite effectively. And then based on whether I've been able to get them on the phone, the messages will change based on how they're interacting with me. But yeah, it's day 14 for a breach here in SA. So we're following that process quite along the way before we can actually issue that breach notice.
You can't issue a breach to day 14?
Well, technically it's day 15, but yeah, they've got to be 14 days in arrears.
Wow.
Oh, gosh.
Great thing in SA. So that's why we've got to stop it before it gets to that point, right? We've really got to be quite on it early. Because they can get quite far way behind before we can actually take any action.
So do people not use that to their advantage and just go, oh, well, you can't do anything till day 14? And then
I've definitely had tenants who've played that game. And so you issue the notice, for example, they've still got 7 days to remedy the breach. So they can be 3 weeks behind, and then they pay it all on week 3, and you continue that cycle for the whole tenancy.
I love hearing how different states' legislation works. And I've mentioned this before. It's so important for us to know how each state works because we've got so many interstate clients that own properties everywhere. And I can imagine it's quite confusing for the investor when they just assume, oh, the way Skye does it for my tenants is this way. Why can't you do it that way, Ash? And it's sort of like making sure they understand the process because, gosh, what a different process completely. Amazing. Yeah. Okay, fabulous. So pick up the phone straight up is probably the takeaway.
Yeah, I don't want to fill out the breach notice. It's too much paperwork. But similar to what the other ladies have said, the messages will change and will educate the tenants on that process. Okay, we're now at day 10. This is what it looks like if we have to get to the breach process because they don't know what will happen. So educating them along the way as well.
Yeah, amazing. And Giselle, over to you. I just imagine you would just be like, phone. Annoy
Well,
to pay the rent.
Well, you have to sometimes to do that. I mean, in Queensland as well, you need at least 2 ways to pay the rent. So we can't do it request or demand to have it one way or another. And they can pay whatever. We can refuse, obviously, cash pay, and we don't get any cash pay. But for me, I do, fun enough, my receipting in the morning when I'm still in bed. And I do get stuck on the TEN code. PropertyMe has got the TEN code, and I use that as a reference for all the tenants. So I force them. That's the only thing that I force them to use, the TEN code as a reference in every payment. That makes it all in blue. When they're in blue, that's like a click, very quick, very fast. So it allows the receipting in a very, very quick way. So in the morning, I'm like in 5 minutes, receipt it all, check the arrears, emails immediately, as the lady was saying, hi, this is how much you are in arrear. In Queensland is on day 8 when you send the formal breach. I do not let that go in any kind of formal way, because after the second breach for the same reason, then you can issue notice to leave, and my tenants do know that. And so I just make sure always text messages. I like text messages as well. We're saying, guys, what's happened? Just let me know. How can I help? I found them a little bit more. I tend to have with my tenants an informal approach via text message. Is there anything I can help? What's the stat? Make them feel a little bit more comfortable. I tell them, I lie, and I tell them that I can't stop the annoying email that comes from PropertyMe. That's not me. That goes automatically. I'm sorry if you don't want to receive it. Just have to pay. And but normally I follow up always with text messages, and normally some are like, oh my God, sorry, I forgot, or I'll sort it out, and they send immediately screenshots. It's pretty good.
Yeah, excellent. How lucky are we, Sam?
Yeah, no, that's good.
How long is it in WA?
So we can just breach from day 1. So yeah.
Wow.
So our process in our office is, I think we've got our automation set up with the SMSs and emails on like day 3 of arrears. I should know this and I don't. It's terrible. I've got the automation set up with whatever PropertyMe does. But I know that the breach goes automatically on day 5 to the tenants, and then that's 14 days, allow for a bit of postage, and then termination after that. So we probably don't get on the phone as quickly at the start. I would say that if the tenant hasn't responded to the automation and responded with a copy of their receipt, then we probably would. But that could also be a reason why we've maybe delayed that arrears process a little bit. Definitely that education at the start, like we're always saying to tenants, make sure that they understand that it's when we receive the rent, not when you pay the rent, because they go like, I paid the rent. It was like takes 3 days to reach us. So there's a big education there. But they still don't seem to really get it, or maybe they just don't listen to you at the start. But what I'll actually come back and I'll summarize it in a minute. Sort of what I've learned from what's working for you guys, I think is super helpful. But before I do that, I just want to ask one last question, and that was, do any of you use the zero rent arrears for marketing purposes? Like, how does it affect when you're signing up new business? Do you use it to your advantage? Does anyone take advantage of it?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Inspection Express is no doubt the leader when it comes to streamlining property management tasks for landlords and property managers to save time and increase efficiency, particularly with their paperless inspection system. Their mission is to simplify the property management process, and now with their partnership with Tappy, there are some amazing new benefits to help deal with maintenance requests on site to further improve property managers' lives. Book in your demo with the team today.
Yep, I certainly do.
Great.
So it's definitely a selling point in my pre-listing email that 100% of my tenants are paying rent on time. But in a more informal setting, certainly it's perhaps unique to my business, given that I'm the business owner and property manager. But I just explain in a joking way, like if that rent doesn't get paid, neither do I. Like, I'm more invested in getting your rent paid than anyone else, because we're both in it for the same outcome. So definitely using that as a key focus, because that's what landlords want, right? They want the rent paid.
Yeah, I mean, and Sam, you probably, I don't know if you do BDM or property management, so you're probably not sure how your team uses it to their advantage.
Well, I mean, no, I don't, because I manage an investment portfolio, so I don't really get involved in the BDM stuff, to be honest. So no.
Yeah. And what about you, Giselle? Are you using it to your advantage?
Well, in general, that's exactly like has been said, is when you say to people, is the same way when people say, how much can I get the rent? It's just, you get as much as you can get, because the more you get, the more I get. My commission is in percentage. If you don't get paid, I don't get paid. So it's all, it's one of the biggest fear of owners, not getting paid. But owners, they do know to get insurance, landlord insurance in the back of it, no matter what. And that's one of my first thing with my owners, regardless, because there is possibility always to have an issue, and they know that they are backed up in that. But the mortgage doesn't wait for anybody when they have expenses, when they have repairs, when they have other stuff to do. So definitely is one of our biggest points of pre-marketing, when we go and talk to new owners, letting them know that our stats are pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. No, I would imagine it's quite impressive. Sorry, I do have one last question. Barclays, is anyone using the Barclays system for like the debt collector SMSs for rent arrears?
No. Not me. No.
So I had a bit of a situation, Ash, where our bond authority released a bond midway through a dispute. So the amount was being disputed and the bond refunded in full to the tenants. And so I had looked around, because I'm like, what do I do here? There's no right of recourse. The tenant's got all the money back. And I had sent an email basically threatening, because it was for outstanding water bills. Like, we had $900 of outstanding water bills. It was pretty black and white that they owed it. So it was kind of worded, thanks to ChatGPT, that, look, you can pay it, or we're going to go down this path of debt collection. So
what about Ticker? You guys don't have Ticker there?
I don't use it.
Because Ticker, if you blacklist people, that's a pretty powerful one. And for invoices unpaid like this, you will have all the right to put them on.
But these tenants in particular had gone and purchased a property. So it would have been a very useful threat for them, because they weren't planning on renting again.
Yeah.
But it worked. So the threat of debt collection on what they actually, needed to pay. And I think certainly what I've seen here in SA, we don't use debt collection services a lot. And I think we need to be using them more.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barclays I've used a little bit. So you can, your owners, and you would always still have landlord insurance, but Barclays, don't quote me on this, I think it's like maybe call it 88 a year, something sort of around, it's under 100 a year. And what it does is it allows you to send an SMS on Barclays' behalf to the tenants. And it actually says, hey, your rent is in arrears by $1,200. Love from Barclays debt collector, like whatever you respond. And they can actually receive that. And the tenant could actually call Barclays debt collector and get Barclays, and they would say, yes, your rent is in arrears. SoCo Realty has instructed us to follow up on your rent. And so it's actually a system that you can use. And if people aren't aware of Barclays, I do suggest that you actually just find out about how it works, get them in your office just to have a meeting with the staff. The only thing I will say is that it is a little bit hard when only some owners have it, because you sort of then have to, like, it's just another system. It's like, okay, does this owner have it or not have it? If they've got it, then I can go into that system and send an SMS. So it's a little bit clunky. But if you obviously had it for every property, then that would be pretty cool to be able just to send that. Whether or not it's a good relationship tool, I would question, but it's just something worth exploring nonetheless. So, and knowing that there's products out there that can actually help. So that was really, really helpful, all those tips. And I just want to summarize for me, like, what I sort of got out of it, and hopefully this helps others. I really like, Giselle, to your words where you said to the tenants, like, I want your ledger to be perfect. I think that's actually a really it's a real simple way of saying it, but I actually just love those words, because that's exactly.
I want to help you.
Yeah.
I'm on your side. I don't want them to think that I'm against them, because I've been a tenant and I have no reason to put the tenant on my bad book. If I do understand that we are a team, I always say tenants, owner, and property managers are a team. We need to work together to have the best result. As a tenant, pay me in time. Owner will be happy. You ask, you will get, and I'm happy in the middle, because I can help you both. So It's a win-win.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great way of doing it. I also love when you said to teach them how to read the receipt and the ledger. And I think that's incredibly important, and something that I don't actually do, like, because I guess we just assume, like, surely you can read a ledger, surely you can read the receipt to see where your rent's paid to, but potentially actually in your sign-up appointment, actually showing them what a receipt looks like and how to see where they're paid to actually would, I think, be super, super helpful to do. So
in Queensland, there is a checklist, and the checklist, it says explain paid to date. Is actually a tick. So I print the checklist in every pack, and I go through every single step with them, tick, 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 and they sign at the bottom. And I tell them, it says the receipt is attached. It's not in the email that you get from PropertyMe. It's the attachment. Open the damn attachment. Nobody does.
Yeah, no, really super, super helpful. Different emails during the process, I think, and also for me, like, I've been using the same automation template consistently, and that just got me thinking, you know what, maybe I should have a little bit more, less generic, a bit more personal and customized for the tenants, to educate them, as opposed to just saying, your rent 6 days, your rent 7 days, your rent's 9 days, your rent's 14 days. Maybe like a better worded educational email, I think, might be super helpful for me. So I like that idea from you guys. And that what Sam said, that the automation definitely helps. But the content in that information is really important from the education, and obviously not relying on it, making sure, like, Skye said, picking up the phone and having those conversations, because, he who shouts the loudest generally wins. And if you're the one on the phone chasing that rent, you're going to get the rent for the other person that's chasing money is going to get it. So they really, really great little tips, reminders, things that I'm actually going to go back and just check our process as well. And I hope that was helpful for the property managers all over Australia. As you can see, we've all got a completely different process, but it sort of still comes down to the same the same process in a way, despite when we need to send out breaches. So really helpful. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate your time coming on, and congratulations on having a time in your career where you've had 0 rent arrears. I'm very jealous, and I can assure you, when I get 0 rent arrears, I will be marketing it and posting it and tagging you all in so that you know. Amazing. I'll chat to you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Property Assist understand that business owners are rapidly expanding their rental portfolios and property managers simply can't handle everything on their own. Property Assist are now offering outsourcing in Western Australia, New South Wales, South Australia and Queensland, and can help your team with all their ingoing reports, outgoing final bond inspections, routine inspections, 360 tours, home opens and inventory reports. Find them on your socials.